Hi, my friends. Welcome back. I'm Stacy Bellward, the host of the Connected Families podcast. Welcome to our community. We are people committed to pursuing God's grace and truth for ourselves, and then daily working to pass that grace and truth on to our children. I'm so glad that you are here. Today, we're going to be talking about something that might make you laugh or maybe cringe, depending on how recently it's happened in your home. Picture this. Your child does something, a big something, the kind of something that warrants sitting down and having a real conversation about it. You take a breath, you get calm, you're ready to have a thoughtful, connected moment. And then your child starts giggling or gives you a ridiculous answer or turns the whole thing into like a comedy routine. Does it sound familiar? Well, if your child laughs when they're in trouble or gets silly or avoids, deflects, you're not alone. And today we're going to talk about why this happens, what's really going on under the surface, and how you can respond in a way that builds wisdom instead of shame. This is an audio blog post, so I'll have the link to the actual blog, which is a little bit deeper, in the show notes. Okay, let's dig in. You know, we actually received an email from a mom that captures this struggle just perfectly. Here's what she said. She said, I love the fresh perspective your resources have given our family. Yay, glad to hear that. But she says, I'm struggling with my 5-year-old son. He intentionally gives wrong answers and silly answers when we're trying to solve issues or talk through a situation. He knows these silly answers make solving the situation difficult. How can I help him be serious so he can learn from the situation when he's more interested in giving a wrong answer to avoid accountability? Oof. Can you relate to that? Many of us can. And here's the thing. This mom's frustration is completely understandable, but I want to offer a different lens for what might be happening. Okay, let's talk about why kids laugh when they get in trouble. When kids laugh or get silly during correction, parents often assume it means they don't care, that they're blowing it off, they're manipulating, they're pushing buttons. But here's what we've learned. It's usually much more complicated than that. In fact, it might be that they care too much, which makes the situation more stressful to them, not less. Let me explain what's happening in the brain. When any of us, kids or adults, are confronted with a mistake, our stress level goes up. Mine sure does. And the skills that we need for problem solving and conflict resolution, those work best when we're in what's called the medium brain energy state. That is, we're relaxed and we're alert. But when kids feel confronted, that stress and anxiety can push them up into a higher energy state. And in that elevated state, the emotions that show up include frustration, anxiety, embarrassment, and yes, also silliness. Silliness becomes this escape hatch. It's a way to deflect the discomfort, a way to avoid embarrassment. Well, the embarrassment of having messed up. Okay, so I want to share a story that really brought this home. A young man named Luke, who smiled and got silly when he was confronted as a child. He reflected on that as an adult, and this is what he said. He said, I'm not sure why I smiled. I think it was nerves, discomfort, and awkwardness combined with fear of consequences or anticipating punishment. Did you hear that, you guys? He said nerves, discomfort, fear, not defiance, not manipulation, fear. Wow. Well, and Luke's dad, he struggled with the exact same thing as a child. And here's what he shared. He said, my father was very rigid. When I made mistakes, I knew my day would take a hard pause for a thorough lesson. I was nervous about this long before I would even start a project. Sometimes even the thought of suppressing an urge made it grow stronger, like holding back a cough at a movie or not laughing during church. He continues, too many times, the painful thought of watching my dad's face get red as he paced out Is this funny to you? Generated that same urge to let out the opposite of what I felt. So nervous to avoid embarrassment, and yet my immature little mind would smile and snicker as I shook my head. No, sir, not funny, definitely not funny at all. He says, even knowing that I might receive harsh punishment, I couldn't prevent my nervous grin. I hated that. And so did my dad. Neither of us could understand it. Wow. Okay. Isn't that powerful? The more his dad tried to stop the silliness, the more power it had. So if your child laughs when in trouble, consider this: elevated stress, anxiety, and embarrassment might be the real source of that silliness, not defiance or disrespect. Okay. So now we understand what might be happening. But what do we actually do when our little stand up comedians seem to be avoiding any responsibility? I want to walk you through the Connected Families framework as a guide. We'll use 4 questions, one from each layer of the framework, to help you think on your feet in these moments. The first question is from the foundation: what's going on in me? And what's going on in my child? We always start with ourselves, parents. Remember that mom who emailed us? She described her son as someone who, quote unquote, intentionally irritates others and, quote, pushes their buttons and manipulates. But here's what I know: kids are incredible detectors of our subtle irritation and judgments. And when they sense that we see them as the problem, as manipulative or intentionally difficult, they often go right to their area of strength to protect themselves. For some kids, that strength is silliness. So the invitation here is to check your own heart. Can you get to a place of treasuring your little one, even when they're being ridiculous, even when they're probably feeling nervous and embarrassed underneath? And then ask yourself, what's it like to be my child right now? Your child might be believing, if I listen carefully, I'll feel worse about what I've done. It just shows that, again, I'm the problem. Or if I'm silly, I might get some fun attention and distract everyone from what's been done wrong. Well, understanding this changes everything, starting with the foundation. It changes everything and is just so important. Okay, the second question is from the second layer of the Connected Families framework: connect. The question is, how can I connect with my child in a way that communicates safety and love? Here are a few practical ideas. First, step into your child's shoes. Smile. Empathize with how challenging the situation was. You might say, sharing toys is tough. You really love that truck. Or you must have been feeling really awful to have said that. And then second, bring God's grace to the shame. Smile and say, I know you know that was wrong, but I'm so glad that God loves you this much when we make mistakes. Use that big gesture. Often this helps a child feel safe enough to drop their defenses. But if they're still being silly, here's a surprising idea. Do something silly yourself. Try, you are my beloved goofball and I'm going to get you. Or you want to be silly? Well, watch this and make a funny face. Connect through play. We have a great article about connective play that I'm going to link in the show notes. And then when you know your child is feeling loved, you can bring the issue up again in a lighter way, focusing on fixing the problem, not analyzing or dwelling on it. Okay. Well, the third question is, you got it, the third layer of the framework called coach. It comes from that layer. It's this: what can I affirm? And how can I ask a question that mentors wisdom in my child? Now, you might be thinking, how can I affirm something when my child just misbehaved? Well, the key is to try and figure out what was important to your child and validate that. It sounds like this maybe. You really love your big sister and wanted to be included with her friends. Or you are so creative and really wanted those Legos. Finding something to affirm communicates that you're looking for the good in your child, not just building a case against them. And when you ask questions, make sure they're curious questions, not trapping questions. Avoid this trapping question. Was that a kind thing or an unkind thing? That's trapping. Or why did you do that? Instead, try, what were you feeling when you had that conflict with your sister? Or here's another one. What made it so hard to clean up your toys today? That's so curious. It's good. If your child says, I don't know, you can offer, do you need some ideas? Because I could see how upset you were. All right. Well, and finally, the fourth layer of the framework called correct, it's at the top. We're going to ask the question, how can I guide my child to right their wrong? The big picture goal here is to build the value of reconciliation. So your child develops an internal desire to work through conflict instead of avoiding it. You might ask, how might this problem get fixed in a way that you feel really, really good about? Or simply, in our family meeting, we agreed on how you could make this right. But let's snuggle together for a little bit first so your heart is really ready. And when your child does make right what they made wrong, celebrate it. Celebrate God's mercy, His grace, His forgiveness together. That's the gospel, and it's just beautiful. Don't skip over that part. All right. Well, I want to leave you with a verse that captures the heart of what we're after here. Isaiah 30:18. It says, "Yet the Lord longs to be gracious to you. Therefore, He will rise up to show you compassion. For the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all who wait for Him." God longs to be gracious. He rises up to show compassion, and He's a God of justice, which means He cares about making things right. That's the model for us as parents. Grace and truth, compassion and correction, safety and responsibility, kind and firm. So the next time your child laughs when they're in trouble, take a breath. Remember what might be going on under the surface and ask yourself, how can I build wisdom here, not shame? You've got this. You're not alone. Okay, friends, thanks for joining us here on the Connected Families podcast. If this episode was helpful, we'd love it if you would share it with a friend or leave a review wherever you listen. And if you want to go deeper, check out our online course, The Power of Questions. It's all about asking the kinds of questions that mentor wisdom instead of creating power struggles. It's a good one. I'll put a link to that into the show notes. There's also going to be a link to this blog post for this episode today. Okay, until next time, remember, you are safe with God. You are loved no matter what. You are called and capable, and you are responsible. The Connected Families podcast is a nonprofit made possible by The Table and other donors. The Table is a group of people from around the world who are committed to Christ-centered transformation in families. Their monthly giving equips parents and caregivers with biblical and research-informed resources that cut the overwhelm and guide parents well. Would you consider joining us at The Table today? For more information about Connected Families, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, or go to connectedfamilies.org. I will see you next time.